Okay, I think we're live, so I will call this regular council meeting of the Village of Grand Manan to order at 7:35 p.m. With us for prayer tonight is Pastor David Phillips. Pastor Phillips.
Thank you. It's good to be able to join this way. Let's begin. Lord, I want to take a moment here at the beginning of this meeting to give thanks for this beautiful day and for the opportunity now for this council to meet and to just go over the many things that are undertaken by them to look after the needs on this island. We thank you for your mighty blessings given to us day after day, and just ask that you continue to watch over each and every one and help us to understand all that we can do as a part of this community that we live in. So thank you for this time now, and be with each one in our council and for the mayor as well, and each one on this island. We give great thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much. So welcome to our second Zoom council meeting. I'd like to thank everybody again for participating this way. With the public health protocols, I think this is our best option for this month, and maybe we'll revisit as we get going along and see if there are some other options available to us. November is, as always, a busy month on Grand Manan with setting day coming up, hopefully next week, and hopefully we have some good weather and good catches for everybody heading out on the water. And just a reminder that Remembrance Day is also coming up next week. I understand the Legion will be having their service at the cenotaph by the fire hall again. And those details, I think if they're not on Facebook, they should be posted and in stores in the very near future. So just something to keep at the top of our minds as we head into the month of November. So with that, I will move on to item number 4, which is disclosure of conflict of interest. Hearing none, I'm just going to ask our clerk if we need to pause because we seem to have lost a participant, or are we?
Yeah, if you don't mind, we've lost our computers, so
Okay,
I'm just here for a minute while they're fixing the technical difficulties.
All right, sounds good. Well, why don't we just hit pause for a minute, and I don't know if we can pause our recording as well, and then once we get them back online, we'll resume, if that's okay with everybody.
Yep.
Okay. Pause. Recording. What? We're on? Okay.
Okay, I think we've lost a councillor and the deputy mayor, so I'm going to say let's just continue the pause for a minute.
I just went up to get a pen.
Okay.
Say we lost a councillor?
I think Councillor Brown has just gone for a beverage or a bio break. I'm not sure. So let's just give her a pause for a second. We'll resume after that.
Unfortunately, I'm worried that we can stop the recording of the live feed, but we can't stop the YouTube feed. So we may still be live on YouTube.
We should behave ourselves is what I think we're being told for the rest of us out here. Okay. All right, Councillor Brown is back. I think we're all back, so let's give this another try. Technology, right? So item number 5 is adoption of the minutes from October the 4th that were circulated in our agenda packages.
I'd make a motion that we adopt the minute meetings.
I'll second it.
You heard the motion by Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons, seconded by Councillor Brown to adopt the minutes of October 4th. Any questions?
I have a question.
Councillor Russell.
Under the vaccine policy, the other night we had a Recreation and Parks meeting with members of the public there. We have a policy now. Do we have a procedure in place? Like, was that meeting properly screened or whatever to ensure that we were meeting all the protocols? Just a question I have for any meeting, if it's a PAC, if it's recreation or any other committee meetings.
It was all double vaxxed at the meeting.
Okay, see, I don't know that.
Yeah.
So, but is someone checking that at all these meetings, that the policy is being followed? I know this meeting, this is council meeting, but I'm thinking about committee meeting.
I believe because people have either shown their vaccination status to the CAO or are going in for their weekly testing if they're a volunteer or haven't shown that, and that record is being kept in the CAO's office. So once we have some idea of where you fall into what category, then that's being maintained at that level, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just wondering about checking prior to each one of these committee meetings or any other village meeting that the
think we have to
participants have been
trust-
properly screened.
I think we have to trust that that's in place because we can't really ask if everybody was double vaxxed or whatever. So I think now that that protocol is in place, I think we have to just trust that it's being followed.
But for example, in the committee meeting, can't expect the CEO to be at every meeting to make sure protocol. Is it up to the
No, but-
committee chair to do that, or what, you know, what is the plan here? What's the action?
But you can email him a screenshot or anything of your vaccination status.
No, I've already done that. I'm just talking
Yeah.
about a meeting,
Yeah,
right? Let's say there's another rec meeting next week.
Well,
Right? At the Recreation Park.
The onus is on everybody on council to have provided their vaccination status or to submit to weekly testing. And so I think that at that point, it's up to the individual to make sure that they have either done that or will continue to do that. I also trust that the CAO, if there is someone who is not complying with the policy, is going to flag that for us and say, the mayor hasn't proven her vaccination status, she can no longer attend meetings, something to that effect. But I think, you know, there is a responsibility and an onus on all of us to adhere to the policy, and hopefully people are doing that.
What about
Greg,
members of the public that are on committees?
Greg, can I make a suggestion that if at these meetings, you can just ask, is everyone aware that the village has a vaccination protocol? And are you in compliance?
Yeah,
I had that right in the email when I sent it out, that everyone has to be vaxxed and
Okay,
we have
Okay.
to see.
okay,
That was in the email that I sent out. So
okay, good. So it's kind of, we really should be up to the committee chair to make sure that is communicated. That's fine. I'm happy with that. As long as it's being done.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I didn't get that, Roger, I didn't get that message you sent about the meeting. I missed that somehow, so
Right.
I didn't see the original message. Thank you.
But Councillor Russell, if I may, so far, I think there's been only 2 committee meetings since the vaccine policy went into effect. And the chair of both those committees sent that out to everyone, and they all either showed us proof. Actually, everyone showed us proof of vaccination. We haven't had any members of the committee, whether they're council or public, not to meet the requirements. So once every committee meets, we'll have record of everyone that's on those committees, and we'll know the stats at that point of whether or not a certain member needs to come in prior to the meeting to do the testing, or everyone on that committee has shown proof of vaccinations and are good to go.
Thank you. Good.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Item number 6 is additions to the agenda. Counselor Boyd, is that your hand up, or are you just frozen on my screen?
Must just be frozen.
I'm not going to tell you what it looked like to me, so we'll just keep going then after that. And we'll move on to item number 7, which is the RCMP report.
Yeah, that's me. So we did reach out to Corporal Stewart, and he did express interest of wanting to take part in these Zoom calls, but unfortunately work has got him called in, so he wasn't able to attend, but he did send along a report. So I will just read through this. Hopefully it makes sense to everybody. So this is the RCMP stats and info, November 1st, 2021. 2021 files from September 13th till November 1st. They had a total of 71 files. The same period in 2020 was 86 files. Some of the reason he feels for the difference is we are not being assigned any quarantine checks at the moment. Seem to coincide with changes at the Canada-US border. 9 files were cleared by charge recommended with 5 prisoners. Alcohol factor in 2, 5 assaults, 3 uttering threats, 4 mental health acts, 6 mischief, 4 theft, 6 collision, and 15 traffic complaints. With L's funeral home closing in no corner located on the island, we are expecting some changes in the process for sudden death reports. I will be speaking with the medical examiner's office in St. George and the St. George Funeral Home and management in the RCMP to find out how we will work moving forward. He also made a note that he was asked by Councillor Green to look into areas where a higher amount of collisions and see if they can be contributed to the way the road was constructed, visibility issues, or animal strikes. West District analyst is working on this, who has also reached out to colleagues involved in traffic analysis. Initial findings, most were deer related on the 776. Possibly put more money into clearing bush close to the roads, creating more visibility. Working on narrowing down a more specific area of the 776. That was his report.
Thank you. Item number 9, old business, village website, Councillor Boyd.
Yeah, so I believe it was 2, maybe 3 meetings ago that I brought forward a couple of quotes for website updates and email and web hosting fees. I sent everybody some links that they could go on and look at the work of both of these companies that provided us with quotes. And now, after a couple months have gone by, I would like to put forward a motion that we accept the quote from Big Bright Sun in Moncton to become our new web designer and get all our web hosting and email through them.
You heard the motion by Councillor Boyd. Do we have a seconder?
I would second that.
Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question?
I think we changed our email.
I think I had 2 questions, one by Councillor Layton and then Councillor Russell.
That was before
My question was concerning the email. What fill me in a little more on what do you mean by that?
So this company will link us in with email hosting. So we will all get like Jordan Layton at villageofgrandmanan.whatever email. And then all our emails are all kept in a server so that if we ever have an RTIPA request or anything like that, it's all linked together. They haven't got to go through anybody's personal emails, personal computers, etc.
So everybody's gonna have to basically change their email when this goes through.
Yeah,
No, they'll
for
have a separate
Just for the
email, right?
business, just for village.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. Great.
Councillor Russell, you had a question?
I just, a question on just the process of, we've got two quotes in front of us. We're looking at like spending $4,000. Typically, when we have a service we require, we state our requirements and go to market. There are a lot of web designers, producers, whatever they're called. But, you know, this was a very narrow search, and I'm just not comfortable with, this is the way we should be doing business at the village. I guess that's my concern. I'm not saying that it isn't a good product. It's the process of how we got to this product with only basically two applicants, and I didn't see anywhere where we spec what our requirements were.
No, and that's right. I spoke with the CAO and the mayor on this, and they just kind of gave me the lead to go after it. I talked to a lot more companies than what we got quotes for, but some of them were so astronomically high because they really didn't want to do it. These were kind of the two that I felt best fit. One was our current provider, and one is one that has extensive knowledge and workings with other New Brunswick municipalities. So that's where I went with it. And I guess this is where we're at. So
I'd be concerned if we do all of our business when we have a service we require in this manner. I'm not saying that we can't do something with this one, but I hope this doesn't set a trend or is a trend of how we're going to do business with such a narrow scope when there's all kinds of suppliers out there.
I think I heard Councillor Turner trying to break in.
Yeah, I mean, based on the amount, I don't think we're required to go any further. And I think there's, you know, some matter of trust in the person like Councillor Boyd, who has researched and checked with other companies. The quote from what's Big Bright Sun? Is that the name?
Big Bright Sun, yeah.
It's really good. I mean, I deal with this stuff all the time, and it's very comprehensive. It gives us everything we need, whereas the other one actually did not. And the price is very good. So as far as I know, that doesn't solve your issue with the process, but I think we're on a very solid quote here.
Just the point I'm making is, like I say, I have no problem with this particular company or the product. That has never been an issue. It really is the process, and I'm speaking from a finance area, is how we do our business. We have to be very transparent here. We have to make when we have a service available, we have to make sure that all the players in the market at least have some opportunity, to put something down. I'm not questioning anyone's knowledge, because I'm certainly not knowledgeable in any of this thing.
Jane, I agree with you. It's it's below any number requiring us to do very much, but it's in our best interest to have I won't say necessarily a policy, but a practice of, if time warrants or allows, to do a wide ranging, as Greg is saying. I think I agree with him. Go forward. I would like to see a different process on that.
Okay. So we've had some conversation around that. Is there anyone else who has a question or comment on the motion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. 10-minute open session is next on the agenda, and I'm assuming we don't have anything for that. So hearing nothing, I'm going to move on to item 11, which is Gannett Rock Lighthouse.
Okay, I'm gonna bring Monica and her team in here. Just bear with me. Okay, Monica, are you there? Monica, are you with us?
I see her coming in.
She's
Okay.
connecting to audio.
Okay.
Here she is.
There, Monica, do we have you now?
I'm here.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. I want to thank everyone for allowing me to speak today. And I wanted to share the progress to date on the Gannett Rock project. I've been in discussion with Dominic LeBlanc, the MP of Shediac. He used to work for the DFO. And Nicole Gaudette, she's a representative from DFO. And Brianna Bagnall, she works for the Real Property Safety and Security. We now know the process for acquiring Gannett Rock. So, so far we have approval from DFO to conduct the feasibility study. We've been working with the liaison, Brianna, from Real Property Safety and Security, and have secured a contract that allows us to actually conduct the study. I have contracted with the engineers to perform the study this week, either Wednesday or Thursday, depending on weather. They'll be transported out via boat by Matt Lambert. Once the feasibility study is complete, we'll be able to finish the business plan and submit it to DFO for approval. Once approved, the property will be added to the roster in April of 2022 to be made available for acquisition. We realize there are still many unknowns. However, we're looking for some assurance from the village of Grand Manan that if we spend the $22,000 to go through with the feasibility study process, the village would be willing to acquire the property from DFO. After acquisition, the Gannett Rock Preservation Society would then lease the property from the village for 20 years. So what we're hoping for is a verbal agreement that the village of Grand Manan will acquire Gannett Rock when we surpass all the hurdles of acquisition, of course.
Thank you, Monica. Any questions?
What are your reasons for the village of Grand Manan taking ownership of the property?
Sorry, I'm hearing some really bad background noise. I couldn't hear you.
What are the reasons why you would like the village to acquire the property and then lease it to a subleasee or whatever? Why do you want to bring the village in on it, I guess?
Sure. Well, I mean, you guys have already done this with two of the lighthouses on Grand Manan, and it's been very successful, and and bringing people in and more tourism. And to me, Gannett Rock is part of Grand Manan, so I want the same thing to be able to happen with Gannett, so that it's a part of Grand Manan, bringing more tourism to the island, of course, and to Gannett. And I think it's it's a part of my family history as well as Grand Manan's family history. So I think it belongs to the town of Grand Manan.
Thank you.
I have some questions or comments.
Councillor Russell?
in the September meeting, the motion was that we would support to assist Monica Ross in finding out the status. Tonight, we're basically being asked to purchase Granite, at least buy Granite Rock. I've talked to a few people around the island, fishermen, both active and retired, and non-fishermen. None of them saw any reason why Grand Manan, the village, should be involved with this project. I guess another question I have, and I've asked Chris, is Gannett Rock within the boundaries of the village of Grand Manan? He didn't know at the time. I'm not sure it is, but personally, I guess what I see that this is a project being mostly by off-islanders, for off-islanders. If the project matures and we do have all those facilities there, I can see very, very few Grand Mananers ever going to the museum or to a restaurant out there or staying there overnight. It seems to be a project by off-islanders, for off-islanders. And I really can't see any reason why the village would want to get involved in the purchase. Once we purchase that, we are then fully liable for that property. I'm not even sure our insurance people would support that in our insurance policy. If we buy it and the project doesn't go through, we're responsible to make sure it's either safe or dismantled for anyone that might happen to show up there. If the project went along and failed in a few years, it's back to the village to either make it safe or dismantle it or whatever. I can see big ticket items down the road. And my understanding of the process is if it's declared surplus, it's offered to the province first, then the municipality, and let's say they both say no, then it goes to public. I can't see a lot of competition for this group in obtaining that property themselves. So I just cannot support this project whatsoever from a village viewpoint. Thank you.
I don't know if you want to respond to that or if there are any other comments or questions.
I would.
Yep, Councillor Green.
Okay. Most of what Greg said, it's like he was reading my mind. Like the fact that it's a project that's out there, that if someone's got a dream, I encourage you follow your dream. But for us, I don't see the village acquiring this property as being many positives there for the village itself, because the potential for that to be a liability and not an asset are very, very high, in my opinion. And as Greg said, I've spoken to different fishermen, and they say that the swell that runs in there's only X amount of days a year you'd ever be able to land a boat anyway, and all this type of stuff. If there's a way to overcome that, by all means, overcome it. But I think you should be doing that without our involvement.
Anyone else?
What would our
Yep.
involvement be as far as financial wise, like purchasing and?
There would be no cost to the town of Grand Manan at all. From my understanding, the way the other two lighthouses were acquired, we're looking to do the same thing as was done with those. So the cost would all be on the Preservation Society, not on the town of Grand Manan.
This is much like the Swallowtail Lighthouse, and I mean, I don't know why we wouldn't participate in it. Personally, we've let assets go through our fingers in previous years, and we look back and said, well, why don't we own this property? So I don't know if we should, it's no different than the Swallowtail and what's going on. It's a little more extreme, but I welcome this project. It will bring dollars to Grand and people will have to leave from here. And I just hate to see it go sideways this quick in the game. There's lots of hoops to go through going forward with her, but I think we should support her. I'd like to support her moving forward, but that's just my personal opinion.
Anyone else?
I'd be worried if things went sideways, like Greg and or Councillor Russell had said. If things went sideways, that we'd be stuck with taking care of it, keeping it up, or tearing it down, whatever. That's my real only concern.
Except that I would be leasing it from the town of Grand Manan, or I shouldn't say I, the Preservation Society would be leasing it from the town of Grand Manan for the 20 years. So for the 20 years, it is the Preservation Society's responsibility, not the town of Grand Manan.
Right.
Is the village of Grand Manan on the 21st year? Or if the society fails in their project anywhere through and they just walk away, then it falls back to the village. And the ticket item could be very, very steep. Most of us wouldn't be around or in the council to justify it at the time, but we're looking at a huge potential here. And for some reason, the lighthouse in Grand Harbor seemed to have fallen to the foundation without any, we didn't, the village didn't jump in and rescue that one. So I'm not sure why we're committed to Gannett Rock, where especially there's very little that the Grand Mananers will have any input or any visiting or anything. It's I don't think it's the one we want to be in. I'm repeating myself, so I'll shut up. Thank you.
Always going to take, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's always going to take somebody's initiative to get something like this started, right? So.
Well, the problem is that if we don't do something now, it's going to disappear. It literally is going to fall in the water and there's going to be nothing left of Gannett Rock. So I've taken the initiative to start this project, and we had hurdles right from the get-go, but I am not stepping down. I'm not stopping this. This is very important. It's a piece of our history. And if we don't do something, it's going to be gone. And then everybody's going to be crying and saying, well, it's gone now. Well, it's too late. And it's a part of our history. It's a big part of Grand Manan, as far as I'm concerned, as far as my family involved in it, just themselves, never mind the rest of, the Grand Mananers that also worked on Gannett, people, the fishermen that are in and around Gannett. It's going to generate a lot of interest in tourism for the town of Grand Manan itself. People have to get to Gannett Rock. They have to go to Grand Manan first. So it's going to generate revenue by far.
So is the village really needed in this project? Like you say, it goes down to the province and the village and then put out there. Are we really a necessary step, I guess is what I'm asking.
I believe you are. Because of the fact that it's going to acquisition in April, or the discussion of that in April, we're on the roster for then, as long as they've approved our business plan. So as long as they've approved the business plan and it goes to that meeting in April, if the town of Grand Manan supports this idea, it's going to be much easier to acquire it than if I go there directly myself, by far, because they're going to see that the town is interested, that they want this thing to survive, that they don't want it to disappear. So it's basically not just me fighting for it to keep it alive, it's also for the town of Grand Manan to do the same.
Can we support it without purchasing it?
I don't know.
I think we send a letter of support or something, or to that, would that help?
I don't know, because again, it has to go through the federal, then the provincial, and then the municipal government. If we have the town already on board, I think it'll make that transition much easier to acquire it. And again, we're also talking about, a lot of the things that are going to happen on Gannett Rock are going to be, construction and people that are going to have to do the work to complete this project. And we would want the town of Grand Manan people involved in that. Like Matt Lambert. I mean, he's already involved very much. That's one local business and we've just started. That's generating more revenue for a business on the island.
I'd like to see the results of the feasibility study before I give an opinion on it, really.
Except
I would like to also see a little bit about what the expenses would be for something like this. I can just imagine the logistics of trying to get anything sent over to Gannett Rock by helicopter, by boat, the weather, everything that's concerned about it. I think the price would be probably quadruple what it would be for fixing Swallowtail or Long Eddy, because there's a roads right to them. You don't have to sail it across, fly it across, and count on weather. So I would really want to see what the costs are going to be to just fix this. And then do we really want to take that on? I know we're not giving the money, but we still would be responsible in the end if you couldn't pay the lease or it failed or whatever the case might be. So I'm concerned about the cost. I mean, I think Gannett's a beautiful little light. I see it every day from my house, but I'm not going out there. That's just my opinion.
I think one of the issues too is, Monica, you're really dealing from the heart, and unfortunately from the village, we have to deal from the head. And there's quite a gap there sometimes. And I know it's difficult for you to sit here and listen to this, but we really have to look after the interests of the village here and not present ourselves or future councils down the road with a big ticket item. Sometime the village is going to have to do something there if we buy it. There's no question that sometime something will have to be done, and it's going to be costly if it's out again.
So maybe, unless there's anybody else, I can just sum up what I think I've heard, and then we'll see where we go from here. I've heard some very strong opposition to acquiring Gannett. I've heard some people who are strongly supportive of it. And I've heard some people kind of in the middle saying they'd like to know the price of it before we commit to anything. Is that sort of a fair assessment of where we are around the table?
Sounded like it.
Since nobody's yelling too much at me, I'm going to assume that it was. And I guess at this point, we're going to need some direction from council via a motion. And I see Councillor Boyd has his hand up and is hopefully going to help me out of this. So Councillor Boyd.
I'm just wondering if, so there's currently a beacon on Gannett Rock, correct?
Yes.
Is that beacon to be retired if it becomes surplus equipment or surplus property? If not, is there, is DFO or Coast Guard or whatever going to reimburse or pay rent, I guess, for the beacon if the village owns Gannett Rock? I don't know how that process works. I'm just curious if that's been thought of at all.
Well, our intention with the beacon was to leave it where it is and not have it touched, because that is needed. So that would still stay there. And whether the Coast Guard is going to still maintain that, or we are then responsible to maintain it, I'm not sure at that point, but it will remain no matter what, it needs to be there.
I would imagine the Coast Guard would
decide that.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, could we table this for another month and have more discussion about it?
If you wanted to make that a motion, we could see how it goes.
I would make that a motion.
You heard the motion from Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Do we have a seconder?
I second it.
Seconded by Councillor Russell. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded?
Nay. I was
one nay, I think is what I heard, because my internet's really laggy right now. So hopefully that was it. So motion carried. I'd like to thank you guys for coming to present. I think this was a hard conversation, but I think it's one that, you know, as Councillor Russell said, we need to have to make sure that we are covering the financial requirements for the village and, you know, make sure that we are doing our due diligence. But I think we all appreciate the passion that you have for Gannett Rock and for the island itself. So thank you for attending tonight, and hopefully we'll have some more discussion on this in the future.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. And my internet is really spotty, so if my screen goes blank, it's just I'm trying to maintain a connection because that's a problem for me lately. Moving up to 14.1, it's Buoyant, the alert system, acting CAO Chris Rayner to address.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in the council package, Esme put in a little advertisement for the Buoyant alert. Full credit goes to Esme for finding this. We all know that we've had some issues in the past with our Sentinel. I guess until you actually start using it, you don't realize what those issues are. One of the biggest issues that I've found over the last 4 months is not being able to get the information out that's required just because of lack of, I guess, usability with the site. We're restricted when it comes to characters and what we can put in the alert. So it's been challenging. A lot of times what happens is you only end up sending out pieces of stuff. So with the Buoyant alert, it does what, as far as we can tell, does absolutely everything. There is an app that you can download on your smartphone. It does have, to be honest, I think there's, you know, us being a small municipality, we probably won't hardly use 80% of the capabilities of this system. But I think as we grow, I think we'll use it more and more. It actually come up in conversation the other night at the health committee meeting, because we were looking for a way to get information out to the people of Grand Manan. You know, instead of being a mail out or instead of sticking stuff up on the sign, anyone who subscribed to this would get the information. But it's the user portion of it. So you can, when you go and sign up for this, you can say, listen, I only live on Grand Manan in the summertime. I'm really only interested in getting alerts when it comes to ferry issues. So when I sign up with my app, I'm just going to click on the tab to only receive information on the ferry. I mean, as you can see, we can even break this down so far as we can use this for public works, road closures, you know, evacuations, fires, floods, all those things. You know, there are a lot of these are what ifs, but one of the other good point of that is what we found is it's a great way for, I think, for council to be able to communicate instead of it being emailed. So council would have their own platform on there. So any member of staff or council can use this as a means of communication, which I think is great. Email is also good, but there's been a little bit of a lag back and forth with some emails. So I checked with Alyssa, and as far as our Sentinel goes, we're not locked in any kind of a contract. It's just kind of used as we go. So if we did decide to change, we'd only be required to pay for the usage or the data up to this point. The good news is with this system, there's no cap on the amount of information that you can put out. Like with the Sentinel, I'm restricted to 144 characters to put in a text message. Now, we realize that not everybody on Grand Manan has a smartphone or it can download an app, but the good news is that you can also sign up to receive email, text messages, and voicemails on your landline. So all the things we have now will still continue, but we would have the increased luxury, I guess, of app, if you want to say. And Voyant has also given us a price to migrate all of our Sentinel users over to their system. I guess in the big thing is, as you can see, the price for a year with unlimited usage, whether it's messages, alerts, or data, is $2,400. Currently, our Sentinel system, we budget $8,000. And last year, Alyssa, jump in there anytime. We had an overage on our data because we sent too many alerts, which it shouldn't be that way. We shouldn't be restricted to how much information we send to the people. So, I mean, I think that was an additional $3,000 or $4,000, Alyssa.
$6,000.
Oh,
I think, but the total was 11,000.
For the Sentinel.
Right, and it's just like if you go over on your data on your telephone, you pay per use. So once we hit our cap, we were paying every time we sent an alert or a text message, and it added up fast.
Yeah, so I mean, it looks like, I mean, we, Esme and I and Alyssa sat down with the Voyant people, and we had a demo over Zoom, and she was actually sending some messages and some alerts to Esme on her phone, kind of real time. And it looked like a fantastic system. But Esme, anything to add? This is kind of, you found this, so.
I think you covered it.
No. No, so yeah, so there's your thing, the $2,400 a year for a far better system compared to the Sentinel, which last year cost us $11,000. So anyway, certainly open for discussion. I mean, this isn't something that we have to do, but something that Esme found, and we have been struggling with that for a while. So I think it's great.
Sounds really good.
It looks really good.
I agree. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Good
Chris?
price.
Yep.
Chris, you mentioned that if we leave Sentinel, we only have to pay for the data we've used to that point. My question is, the database they have with all of our contacts, is that their information or our information? Is it ours to take it and import it? It says that they'll import, Voyant will import it, but will Sentinel give it to us to import, or how does that work?
This is all on the CAO's computer. So we entered all of that information manually here at the office.
Oh, okay. Good.
So we can add or delete at any time, but Voyant was just saying that to help us out, because we've got 700 or 800 users. So instead of someone here going in and moving each individual person with their email, their cell phone, or their home phone, they would come in and they would do up a program, and it would transfer everybody over automatically.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Someone else?
No, you go ahead, Greg.
Just a couple questions. Under entitlements, it says unlimited registrations. Does that mean as many people as want to can sign up?
Yeah, I mean, the whole country of Canada could sign up for our Voyant alert system.
Okay, what the fourth bullet, it says up to 4 administrators, additional at $400 a year. What's that mean?
Each individual group, like, so let's say, for example, there's a main administrator who would be here in the office. They would be the one that would oversee the entire Voyant system. So they would have access to everything. They could change users, update profiles, and all that stuff. But if we had, let's say we had one just for mayor and council, so maybe the mayor or the deputy mayor, they had the administrative rights to that. So this is saying that we're allowed up to 4 separate administrators.
Is the first administrator in the $2,400?
It is.
Okay.
All of them are.
The first 4.
The first 4 are in that.
The first 4, it says an additional of $400 a year.
It
If you
does
have
say
more than
additional.
4.
The 5th one would be $400 a year.
The 4 is included in the package.
Yeah, we're able to have up to 4. If we need to have anything over 4, it's $400 for each additional administrator.
Okay.
Counselor Boyd has a question.
Yeah, Chris, just two parts actually. Currently now Sentinel is all, you have to put it in on the office computer, is that correct?
Correct.
And this Voyant, you just log in. If you're one of the admins, you can log in on the app and just fire out anything from there.
Yes.
That sounds great. And also, and maybe this is a question for Esme, would there be enough? I know when I updated my contact info in Sentinel a few months ago with Esme, I had a lot of old information on there, and to no one's fault. It's just it wasn't ever updated on my end. I wonder if it's worth. I know there's a lot probably there, but I wonder if it's worth going through it rather than having the migration done to just make sure everything's current in there.
Yeah, we did just actually go through a lot of it. Alyssa and I sat down, and there's no way to know some of them because we don't know if their numbers have been updated. But there's another option with the Voyant, like we could send out our last few alerts on the Sentinel to say that we're moving to a different system. And if people wanted to be put on the new one, they could let us know with their updated information instead of getting all the contacts moved over. So we could just kind of do it ourselves with our own administration, and that way we have everyone updated.
That's a great idea. Great idea.
So if, let's say, for example, Councillor Boyd, you wanted to download that Voyant app, you enter your own information into your own app and your own profile. It's only the people that won't have access or don't want to download the app that would be required to get transferred over.
Gotcha. No, that's great.
Any other questions?
Like there are apps like You Go Round, which are free to communities. And I'm just wondering, have we looked at anything besides Voyant? I'm impressed with it, I'll be honest, but I'm just wondering if we have looked at any other options.
I haven't.
Nope.
No.
No, we haven't, Councillor Turner.
Anyone else? If we want to make the switch over, I would suggest we would need a motion.
Yes, unless we wanted to table it, if Councillor Turner wished to look into some different systems before we made the switch over.
I would like to see us look at some other options just because there does seem to be some out there. And I think just comparing the price to Sentinel might not be as diligent as we could be, maybe. I am impressed with Voyant. I'm very impressed, but I just question that it's the best fit for us. If we're only going to use a portion of what they offer, maybe there's something that gives us everything we need at a lower price or for free, like I'm just saying, for example, You Go Round, it's free to communities. We would have to see if it gives us everything that's required or everything that we want, but I don't think it would hurt to look at other options.
Is it a time sensitive matter compared to like when do we subscribe to Sentinel? It's a yearly payment subscription. Will that end in December or?
I feel like it comes due in like June or July. So we just paid that bill mid-year. So we've got some time. But the more we use it, the more we'll pay next time.
I also think we should take into consideration that it would probably be surprising how much we would grow into using a lot more features on this program as well. Like we want to make sure we're getting a program that if we decide, like if I as a counselor wanted to get a hold of someone else in my committee and they only check things every now and then, if I send that committee a message saying we need to talk, and you message me or whatever, they'll get it instantly. Because it'll come up on their phone. And when they can, they'll call me. So we want something that's going to grow with what we should be growing into, is unfortunately involving all this tech stuff that we all have to learn and hate to learn. But once we learn it, we seem to fit into it. So I just want to make sure we do get a program. I mean, we can certainly look at other ones, but I want to make sure it's something that maybe we can grow into as well.
What brought it to my attention was other municipalities that were switching to Voyant. So I haven't looked at others, but a lot of them also use the Sentinel system and move their contacts over to Voyant. So I don't know if they had done their research, but it seemed like one that was popular.
It says here that they customize too to what you need.
Yeah.
And that $2,400, that's the best package that we can get.
Like
Like
their premium.
there's probably a cheaper package within Voyant.
So what are the wishes of the group? Do we want to have a motion to table this till the December meeting and get some more information on other systems? Or do we want to move forward now? And I'm looking for someone to make a motion one way or another.
I just have one more question for Alyssa. You say we just paid Sentinel, a bill at Sentinel. So how long are we good? How long are we with Sentinel now? You say 6 months?
I think we paid it like in July, I think. I can't say for sure. It's around mid-year when we get that bill, so.
I feel like it was one of the first checks you got me to sign, so probably right around June or July. Yeah.
So if hypothetical, we make a motion and go with Voyant, can we are we stopping payment, or are we committed to Sentinel for 6 months or a year at this point regardless?
No, when we paid it was for the previous year, like up until the end of June. So I think if we stop, I can check all that information out if you guys do want to table it. I don't think we're in a contract. I think if we stop, then we just stop. But I can get all that information for you. I can call them tomorrow and we could table it till December until we have all of our information.
Yeah, so our plan with Sentinel, let's say, for example, is 8 gigs of data for $8,000. And last year, unfortunately, let's say we used 12 gigs of data. So that's why we had the $8,000, which is what the plan is. But then we also had the overages, which we all know with our cell phone plan. If you pay for it up front, it's a lot cheaper than going over on your data plan.
That is true.
So would someone like to make a motion to table this to December? Because that's kind of what I'm hearing.
I'll make a motion to table it till December.
And I'll second that.
Motion by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Do we have any more questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. 14.2, Coroner Service for Grand Manan, acting CAO Chris Rayner to speak.
Again, thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, the coroner. So there's been several discussion. I guess the whole thing started 2 or 3 weeks ago when I went to the fire hall for a meeting. The chief and the deputies and some of the captains brought it to my attention that they were very concerned with Phil L's retiring, I guess, the end of the month, which was October. So I guess he's officially retired now. And what was going to happen in the case of some type of a serious event. Because up till now, the funeral home has taken on the role of the coroner. So we reached out to Andrea Anderson Mason, our MLA, for a little bit of help or some insight on this, on where to go, because the coroner falls under the Department of Justice. So We've had some conversations with Andrea about this, and we still haven't got it ironed out yet, but it looks like there's a couple of different plans. We've got an intern plan right now, which maybe I'll rely on Councillor Boyd to speak on maybe as well. He's been in on this with conversations with Andrea, with Bill Els, and I believe also with Melanie Sonnenberg. So they were also looking at a long-term plan, which it sounded like they were trying to reach out to Horizon to see if there was any way that the coroner or whoever the coroner might be at the time, depending on what happens, it's all about what to do with the body and the chain of custody. So they were looking at possibly putting in some type of a system up here to the hospital with Horizon. The MLA told us that early on in the pandemic, the province had purchased some refrigeration units, and they thought about maybe bringing one of them over in the meantime. But there's some logistics with that they're kind of work out. But maybe I'll let Councillor Bowie, if he doesn't mind, just kind of speak on where we are with kind of in the intern, like what we would do if something happened today, I guess is what we're looking at. So. Councillor Boyd.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Yeah, so I had some discussions with Mr. Els over the summer, and just, you know, everyone kind of thinks that everything's always in a far off, distant future, but here we are in November, and Mr. Els is officially retired. I did speak with Melanie, his daughter, and at least in the short term, until the province decides the permanent solution for us, which they are aware we're in need, and Andrew's working hard. We were supposed to have an update with her on Friday, but I think some things got pushed to the back burner with all the CUPE things going on. In the short term, the Els family will continue to provide that service to the island as far as getting a body from the scene to the morgue in St. John.
Thanks, Councillor Boyd. So yeah, so it's obviously that's not completely ironed out yet, but we just kind of wanted to bring that to everyone's attention, that something that we're working on, because it is an issue, and I know our fire department was very concerned. So we wanted to make sure they knew that we were working on some type of a solution for them. I guess. Any questions?
Questions?
Okay.
Councillor Russell?
Is it the Department of Justice mandate to solve this problem, or is it the village?
It sounded from Andrea that they're looking, right now they pay for that service. So this isn't something, it didn't sound like it would be something that would fall on the village to pay for. So they're looking for a solution. I think that's why they're reaching out to Horizon. So anyway, if something happened today, obviously with the Els family still willing to continue on, that the province would still continue to pay for that service.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. 14.3, Point Lepreau, license renewal. A couple weeks ago, I had the opportunity to participate in a Teams meeting with the mayors of St. Stephen's, St. Andrews, Blacks Harbor, Campobello, and myself. Point Lepreau and V-Power did a presentation on their license renewal, which is up next year. They are applying for a 25-year license this time instead of a 5-year license. Because there are so many new mayors around the table, they wanted to do an information session, sort of bring us up to speed on what Point Lepreau does in the community, what their situation is, all those kinds of things. There's the slideshow that we had is in your packages. I'm not going to try to talk about it because I can talk my way through many things, but nuclear power is not one of them. And they have offered to do a presentation to council if there was interest in learning more about it. And ultimately what they would like from us is a letter of support for their license renewals. So This is more of just an FYI, this is out there. I wanted to gauge if there was interest in proceeding with having that Zoom, I'm assuming, information session. And then we can go from there for future meetings. So that's my 30-second update on that. And please don't ask me any nuclear power questions. Questions?
I think a Zoom meeting would be a great idea. Personally.
Okay. Anybody else want to come with Councilor Brown and I to learn more about nuclear power, or are we?
Sure.
All right. I will reach out, see if we can set something up, and hopefully we can report back maybe at our December meeting, if that makes sense for everybody. Is that fair? Okay, got myself off the hook on that one. I'm on up next as well, 14-4 year-end review. Right after we were elected, we had a sit down one evening where we talked about what we wanted our priorities to be, what some of the things we wanted to work on over 4 years. And one of the things we had talked about was sitting down at the end of the year, trying to do a little recap of what we had done and looking forward for 3 years. I think it would also, because we are such a new group, it would be good to talk about what we think is working, if there are things that we don't think are working that well, and see sort of where, just a check in to see where everybody is. I'd like to suggest that we do it once we get the budget process done, so end of November, 1st of December. But I wanted to flag it for everybody so we all have an opportunity to think about it. And I think the ultimate goal was to have an update, to maybe do a mail out to the community at the end of the year, sort of a, this is what we've done in 6 months kind of thing. So I don't know if anybody has any comments right now, or if you just want to take that home and think about it, but I did want to put that on everybody's radar that the end of the year is coming up. So questions, comments?
You said a word about budgets, and we had a quick email. Is there a plan now for next year's budget to get together soon? And
I actually talked to the treasurer about that today. Given my schedule this week, I am suggesting that we look at next week during an evening. We still at this point don't have the numbers for the RCMP costs or from DTI, which makes it really challenging to do anything final, obviously. But we will sit down with what we have, bump the numbers up a little bit, and from last year, see where we are, and then we can plug those numbers in once we have them. So that's what the plan is right now, and we'll have a look at the calendar for next week and hopefully be able to sit down some evening.
thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. 14-5 Boys and Girls Club update MOU. Acting CEO Chris Rayner.
Thanks again. So some of you may or may not be aware that back when this beautiful complex was built back in 2009, the entire facility was managed by the Boys and Girls Club. Basically, they looked after the insurance, they looked after paying the power, they looked after paying the cleaning, everything. All the village did was we had a bit of a calculation that we figured out how much square footage of the building that we used, and we paid a portion of those services back to the Boys and Girls Club. But the Boys and Girls Club also were, being the management of the facility, they looked after the bookings for the gymnasium, the fitness center, and all the revenues that came with that. So that was back in 2009, and the contract, or the MOU, has expired 2018. There's a copy of it in your package. So there's been a few things come up over the last little bit that I think it's time that we need to sit down and review the MOU and sit down with the Boys and Girls Club and work out some of those details and get another MOU signed, because clearly all the stuff that's in the old MOU is no longer valid. I mean, the village agreement now looks after the gymnasium, the fitness center, the bookings with all that. We pay all the power, we pay all the cleaning. So I think it's time to sit down and revisit that. That may be something that we could put down to one of the committees to maybe to work with the Boys and Girls Club to hash out a new one, possibly. Not sure which committee that would fall under. If that would be properties, probably.
That would be my guess. Any comments or questions? See Council Russell smiling. I don't know what that means, so.
Well, Chris mentioned properties and Tillman got out and started to walk away. I guess he gets back to his seat. Since he's on that committee.
My
I
phone
noticed
is
that
ringing
too,
in my
Grace.
ear. I just wanted to shut it off. I didn't want to miss anything here.
Yes, I would say that finance and properties would take that on with the assistance of the office staff. Does that
Okay.
seem reasonable?
Yeah, it does. There's two issues here. I mean, there's the MOU between the Village of Grand Manan and the Boys and Girls Club, but there's also the lease with the Boys and Girls Club for the space that they occupy on that side of the building. So,
Yeah, I haven't seen a copy of that, so I assume that's available.
Would it be possible if we had a meeting like with the council of whole, with everybody that sits down at the table, with all the stakeholders, with all the councilors, and maybe be brought up to date and actually the function of the Boys and Girls Club services to the island? And I mean, I think everybody here, this has been an ongoing issue. I think for a couple of years they haven't had a MOU. And I think it would be nice if the council would be able to sit down and have a conversation with all the stakeholders and then go and forward it to a committee after that, if that makes any sense. There's a lot of information, I think, in our packets that I don't know how accurate it is, I guess.
I kind of agree. Because I really don't know what and how much they're contributing to it, or what they actually even do sometimes over there, or what we exactly do. My internet connection apparently is unstable right now. But I don't know anything about how that's divided up, or who pays what portion or what's. So it would be nice to have a baseline to start up that says, so that we all understand what each department is responsible for.
And that is an expired MOU. So what it does say doesn't happen anymore anyway. So the information is incorrect, but it's an expired MOU.
Right.
So, but there's
So
not a
how
new
is
one?
it? Yeah. So we're trying to work on a new one right now, right?
We should be.
That's what we're aiming at.
Right.
I think we had one of those sit downs probably a couple of years ago, Councillor Layton, Councillor Toll, and it's probably not a bad idea to do that, just to sort of go over who is doing what. And maybe if we can do that through the month of November, then by December, we'd be ready to turn it back over to the property committee. Does that make sense as a way forward?
Yeah.
Is the lease agreement we have now, is it current or is that expired?
that lease is page number 2 in that package that you've got there, Councillor Russell.
Page 2?
Yeah.
Oh, it says the one dated January 15, 18?
The lease commenced on December 15th, 2009, and it terminated December 15th, 2019. It was a 10-year lease.
Okay. Oh, that's the lease, and then the memo of understanding is separate. So that's even the lease is expired, so nothing's current right today with Boys and Girls Club.
No, the lease and the MOU have both expired.
Okay, yeah, thank you. But we're still going with the lease that we have, the expired one. Is that the agreement we're working on?
Yeah, nothing's changed.
No. Okay.
As far as the lease go, but the MOU has just, obviously the village takes on a lot more responsibility than what's spelled out in the current or the old MOU, so.
Okay.
Okay, so we will try to set up a meeting with the Boys and Girls Club. I'm assuming they're board as well. Have a sit down. It might pay for us to have a little sit down before we all get in the room and go over a little bit of our side of the history, for lack of a better way of saying it, maybe. And then have the sit down, talk about where we are and where we see us going forward. So I don't know if that makes sense. Maybe we'll try to do that in the month of November.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea, but this document dated January 15th, 18th, is that current, or is that as well? We're not living by that either.
Is that the MOU that you're referring to?
Well, it's the last page of the documents that came stapled together here, January 15th, 18.
That's just something that Rob had me do up when their MOU is expiring, just to see what they have, the village gives them. That's just something I did for Rob and passed out to everybody.
So is that relevant to today's discussion though? I mean, is any of that?
Yep, that would be
Yeah.
totally current, except we don't have a pool anymore, so they
And we
wouldn't use
don't
our
give them
pool.
that grant.
Okay.
And we don't give them their $20,000 annual grant.
Okay, anything else on that one? I think we've got a path forward then. So hearing nothing, we'll move on to 15.1, the Recreation Director's report. Back over to Chris.
Imagine that, you're back to me. So I've been speaking an awful lot, so I'll just make this quick. Obviously, ICE has taken priority with just about everything that the Recreation Department has been doing, but I did want to make mention to all the hard work that Tanisha and the girls and their committee put forward to the Fall Festival. Anyone that drove by that seen all the kids out in the yard with the trunk or treat, I mean, it certainly was worth it. I know that the rain kind of dampened their spirits a little bit with their outdoor movies and stuff, but they were quick thinking on their feet, moved everything inside, which was great. So just thanks to them for all of that. We did go around last week and collected all the garbage bins. The tender was up, not the tender, but the contract with the current garbage collection was up at the end of October. And we always like to have those bins up before Halloween, because you never know what the little spooks will do with those cans. So we've got them all up and stored over at the pool. I know Councillor Boyd in an email mentioned the possibility of maybe leaving a couple out. I'm not sure if that's a discussion that wants to take place, or maybe a discussion that could take place somewhere along the way to see if there's something. We did leave the one out by the outdoor court and the pickleball court over at Victoria Park, and we've also got the one here at the skateboard park left open. So keeping on the skate park, it's still a bit of a construction issue. Councillor Russell expressed some concerns last week and with some of the material. So we did. Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons brought over his equipment from work to help clean up some of the material. Apparently, all those nice new ramps and stuff wasn't enough. The kids thought they needed to make up some makeshift ones. This was some plywood. It's a 2x4. Which you got to love their ingenuity, but with current liability risk, it's certainly an issue. So we're in the process of getting some signs up. We did have a sign made that just basically says construction, still under construction, use at your own risk. So I know we've got all the material stored out back of the arena. I was speaking to Sean the other day. He's still looking to try to get some more stuff done, but obviously the weather is getting tight. So we just wanted to make sure that was secured for the winter. But today was officially the opening day of the arena, which was great to see. We did really put the push on last week to try to we did manage to get a couple of the teams on the ice. Thursday and Friday of last week because they had games on home games here on Saturday. So we wanted to make sure the kids at least got a chance to get their skates on and get them tried out before the game. Anyway, I always give a little bit of report. Former Councillor Cheney used to love these numbers, and I'm sure he's sitting home watching. But anyway, to put that ice in for everyone that's unaware, it takes roughly 100 floods to get the inch of ice that we need to open. So in order to get that that inch of ice, we walked basically 180,000 feet around that arena, pulling the hose and the sprayer, which equates to about 50 kilometers of walking. We currently put down about 210 gallons of white paint to get it white, and about 15,000 gallons of clear water over that to get it sealed in. So that's just kind of the nuts and the bolts of what it takes, other than, you know, the 4 straight weeks of all week long doing all that. So anyway, we are officially open. Esme and I were working on the schedule a little bit today. It's pretty much the same schedule, which offers public skates every day with the minor hockey schedules as well as the adult hockey. But anyone wishing to rent the ice, please feel free to reach out here to the office. Any questions?
I may just add a couple of comments for the group and others on the skateboard park. We have a skateboard park under construction. We are at some liability there, or even liability if it was complete. Right now, our insurance liability package covers $5 million. Some recent municipal claims have been settled in courts for anywhere from 15 to 18 million for various reasons that the municipality was held accountable. Chris is also getting some additional signage up. Helmets are mandatory there. I made some temporary ones up and stuck them up. If you happen to go by, and this is just for a message to everyone that might be listening out there, that helmets are mandatory in that park. If you go by and see some kid or someone there without a helmet, you wouldn't tell them to put their helmet on. I mean, we are, you know, we've got to, till we get everything in place, there's still some construction to finish up to even make the existing facilities safe. So I think we've, you know, we can all help here. And it was suggested that by my Facebook person that lives at home with me, that this message should go out on Facebook, that helmets are mandatory, and, you know, we're under construction, that it may help us down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Anyone else?
Yeah, Chris, the Zamboni, is that the issues with that under control?
Yes and no. I guess there was no new part that was put on the Zamboni that fixed the problem. I think Randy down to Island Truck Repair was pulling his hair out the day that he called to come get it and bring a trailer. I wasn't sure if he told me to come get it to take it to the dump or take it back to the rink. But anyway, no, I know he exhausted pretty much every option he had, and he really relied on Saunders Equipment in Fredericton. That's the people that actually made the Zamboni, and that's where we purchased it from. And I think he said in the 30-some years that they've been doing it, that they've never experienced that problem. But Randy did show us how to get it started in case it did act up again. So so far so good. We haven't had to do that yet. It's worked fine ever since we've had it back. So hopefully, knock on wood.
I noticed in the paper, I think this week, that Hampton got a new Zamboni, an electric Zamboni. And well, I don't know if there's that's something that there'd be funding available for, if it's worth a call to someone in Hampton to see what that's all about, or if any of your contacts could see what's going on there, maybe.
Yeah, I know the rec director in Hampton quite well, so I can reach out to them. But the Zamboni we have was a refurbished one. I think it was 25 years old. I think the price tag was somewhere in the $32,000 to $35,000 range. compared to probably the one that they just bought, the new one that's electric, was probably, over 100.
I'm just thinking anything that's green, that there may be some funding available for a project like that. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, no, it's certainly something to consider, because I mean, that Zamboni, we're on the 11th year with that now. Like I said, it was used, but completely refurbished when we bought it, but it was used. So certainly something we'll look at for sure.
Anyone else? Okay, thanks, Chris. 15.2, Transportation Committee, Councillor Layton.
Thank you to Madam Mayor and fellow councillors. The airport file has had a lot of action this month. All documentation and studies should be finalized and be on our DC's desk this week. The village will have met the criteria that was asked from our DC, and we look forward to a recommendation or a decision in regards to the resurfacing and the 300-meter expansion to our current runway. As far as the roads, the village had a successful summer in bringing 4 critical infrastructure projects to completion. The hard surfacing will be applied next week and will bring this season to an end. We participated in a Zoom meeting with DTI on October 12th, and a few things that DTI advised was they need a more analysis on the proposed widening of Ingalls Head Road and Route 776 and the acquisition of property that may be required. DT is willing to look into funding to hire a consultant firm to help the village with our highway needs, including the identification of property requirements for all projects. DTI also clarified that they do not provide the maintenance services within the village. It is the village's responsibility to administer and control our highways and needs within our village. It was recommended that we review and resubmit our 5-year plan, and that is currently in the works. We are pleased to be moving forward with better communication with DTI and future improvements to our island. Now, back to coastal transport. We are at the end of our refit schedule, and the Adventure should be arriving tonight, and will resume schedule as soon as it's prepared for sailing. The Grand Manan 5 has served young and well during this period. There have been a couple of issues that come up, and the Transportation Committee will arrange a meeting this coming month with all stakeholders, so concerns can be brought forward about how we can make improvements to the next refit schedule. And lastly is the COVID-19 update for coastal transport. All passengers must wear a mask at all times while traveling on the ferry. In order to avoid further restrictions on the vessel, like removing our seating and keeping with current provincial COVID regulations, passengers are required by law to wear a mask at all times unless seated in the cafeteria and eating. Fines for not wearing masks range from $172.50 to $200 or to $772.50. So everybody wear the mask on the ferry. And I guess that's everything. If anybody has any questions or. Thank you.
Thank you. Any
I'm
questions?
on the 5:30 ferry tonight, and the word is the Adventure will be making the 9:30 run from Blacks Harbor tomorrow.
Good news.
Very good news. Anyone else? Sounds good. 15.3, Solid Waste Committee Report, Councillor Toll.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and fellow councillors. I just want to update everybody on what's been going on with the Solid Waste Committee. We have been approached by the Fishing Gear Coalition of Atlantic Canada to participate in a study that they are doing on recycling, repurposing lobster traps. They're asking us for a 10% payment to be the main participants in this project, which I'm afraid that I'm quite sure that the village doesn't have $35,000 lying around right now. So we are in the process grant through them. They are going to write it up for us and send it off to the, oh dear, to the New Brunswick Environmental Trust Fund to get a complete grant that would cover our portion of this fee and also cover a and doing the study for. It'll be similar to when the tires and oil cans and all the other to help recycle and reuse all these products. So our village was picked basically as we have between 350,000 and 400,000 now located in our C&D site that have been gathered up over the last, I guess, the fishermen have been bringing them in. So there's not very many left lying around the island. They're all concentrated. And in the paperwork that I put in with this package, there's a picture there of what the C&D site looks like right now. And there's 2 people in there walking on that road. So it gives you a kind of concept of what that looks like with that many traps being in the middle of it. And you can barely make out the 2 people. One of them's, I'm waving, but I'm not sure. I had Rupert take that picture for me so that we could see how many traps are in there. So that is part of the reason why they would like to come and help us clean this up, is because they would have everything right there where they need it. I was speaking to Greg and had sent him a message about it, and he had sent me a message back because he has a few questions about how they're planning to do this grant up and what else are you responsible. So they have a deadline on this grant that they're submitting for us, and it has to be in and requested. So what I'm basically asking for the village, but we have some questions anyway, because we're not quite sure how they worded in the paperwork that I've attached in this package. You can read that over and it explains a little bit about what's going on. So what I'm asking for is a motion just for approval in principle to have them propose this grant and send it in for. And then we have to make sure that there's no before we our portion of that grant. Well, it was certainly nice to see all of our traps cleared out of here and being reused and recycled into other. And I also, Bonnie gave me some information that approximately on a yearly basis, we would have between 9 and 9,500 traps that get repurposed, that get sent to the dump yearly. So this would be a project that would be ongoing. But first we need to do a study to make sure that it is a feasible thing. So any questions? I don't know if I have all the answers, but I might have a couple. This came over pretty quickly, so it was something that we didn't have a whole lot of time, and there is deadlines on, so.
I didn't get everything you said, Trish. You kept
Was I
breaking
talking
up.
too fast?
No,
Yeah.
you kept
Oh,
breaking
break
up.
up.
Yeah, you kept, yeah. So I didn't get everything, but I've read that and it's.
Okay.
Is Bill, I've noticed AIM here taking.
So what I'm pardon, sorry.
Sorry. I've noticed AIM here, like
Yeah, well, AIM is the ones that come down to do.
but I've actually noticed offshore traps in their trucks going off the island. So I'm wondering, isn't that Bill's job? Isn't that Bill's gig to supply that?
I think you're talking about him.
Not that
I'm
I
sorry,
love the
I
project.
can't,
This is a great
maybe it's-
project. But I just don't understand if we're going to pay twice to get rid of these traps. We're paying Bill, I believe, to get rid of the traps.
Bill has just been gathering them up there. He has not, has had nothing else to do with them other than that. He agreed to take on gathering them and having, which was a C&D application that was put in on previous council, I believe, to approve traps going there to be held there at the C&D site. They could be bare, but we'd rather recycle.
Technically, anything up at the C&D site, it is destined for its end of life, like it would be buried. But because Bill has found a potential market through AIM to do something with these traps, that's how they were coming to pick them up to take them out of the C&D site. They are the only company, to the best of my knowledge, that can do anything with the lobster traps, because the metal with the coating on them, the process to get the metal out, it's extremely labor intensive, and there's not a lot of return on the metal because it's a low quality metal. I don't know if that helps some. I don't think Bill is actually getting anything when the traps go to AIM. I think it's more just to clean up some of the stuff that's up there.
I reviewed the letter. I guess I was surprised that it was sent on October the 20th and there's a deadline of middle of November. I have a lot of questions. I don't think I want to go through them tonight because I sent those questions back to the Solid Waste Committee and the mayor. And the mayor has suggested that we do a Zoom meeting with a lady named Rachel, who is the project manager for the New Brunswick study. Apparently, they're doing a study in each province. If you go on their website, this is the one for New Brunswick. And one of the things I note in here is last year, Bill sent 160,000 traps to AIM last year. So our traps are going. But I have got a lot of questions and concerns. There's requirements about staffing to help with this project. There's documents they're looking for, sustainability policies and all kinds of things. I don't see how we can possibly meet that with a firm commitment of 35,000. But I agree with Trish, if we could approve something in principle till these questions are answered, it may give them enough to move ahead, subject to us being satisfied with getting all the information. And I can send this to my comments to everybody if you're interested.
Thank you.
I think it's a good project. One of the reasons Grand Manan was picked is we're the only place in New Brunswick that doesn't charge tipping fees for people to bring their traps. So Grand Manan, they're not hiding traps in the woods here. They're not dumping them in the ocean to hide them, which they're doing on the mainland New Brunswick because they have to pay tipping fees if they take their traps to a landfill. Some landfills won't even accept them on the mainland. So I think, and we have, they're all in one space here. So I think it's, there's a lot of good reasons why Grand Manan is a good place to do their study. But they're also doing studies in Nova Scotia, PEI, and Newfoundland. And I'm curious as to why one study wouldn't work for all the Atlantic. That's just some of the questions I have, but there's more. So I think the Zoom meeting with everyone involved would be a very good idea to, so we know what we're getting into here. Even though we may get our $35,000 back through Environment New Brunswick or whatever else is available.
I believe they're doing a study in each province simply because to have the recycling is a responsibility of each province. They'd have to have a study customized for each one is my understanding of why they're doing it that way. But yeah, I think to have them speak to it directly makes a lot of sense because I know enough about this to be absolutely dangerous. So without getting myself in over my head with questions I really shouldn't be answering. I guess at this point, maybe I would suggest we're looking for an approval in principle. If there is support for that, if there's more questions, we continue the discussion.
I think I would like to see us go ahead and let them put in that grant, and we don't have to commit to and Sony to get some questions. It's interesting, and I would like to know these answers as well. But as we are deadline with them even putting in that grant, I'd like to see that go forward, the answer, and then we can make a decision on it.
Question for Trish. I've read a lot of this. I didn't see anywhere in any correspondence that there's a deadline. So that must be something that was given to you verbally. Is that correct?
I'm having trouble hearing Councillor Toll, but I believe it was in a verbal conversation part that we'd had at one point.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's freezing.
Is it my internet or is it Counselor Tolles?
It's
Ed,
Counselor Tolles.
Okay,
oh, I think, yeah.
all right.
Did she
So
make a motion?
I think I heard her making a motion to support
Yes.
it in principle pending the Zoom meeting and ensuring that there are no costs to the village of Grand Manan. Was that the motion, Counselor Toll?
Yes.
I second that.
Seconded by Counselor Russell. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, moving on to 17. 17.1 is approval to pay the following invoices from the general operating fund. JetPro Consultants for the AWAS maintenance, $3,150. Chandler Sales for the fire department VHF antennas, $1,764.10. Island Home Hardware for the doctor's house and the skate park, $2,179.82. And Island Waste and Recycling for the transfer station forklift, $3,944.68.
When's the time for questions after the motion? Thank you.
I would move we pay the invoices as listed.
I'll second that.
You heard the motion by Councillor Green, second by Councillor Boyd. Question, Councillor Russell.
Way around.
Yeah, I'd ask, normally we have a finance meeting before this meeting to go over some of these details, but Melissa, would you share what, just a little breakdown on each one of those and if all the projects are complete?
The JetPro Consultants, Greg, that is a yearly contract at the airport. They do our procedural maintenance with our AWAS system and all the stuff out there where you can call in and make sure the weather's okay. Chandler Sales, it's just fire department, VHF and antennas. Island Home Hardware, it's skate park and doctor's house. And the Island Waste is a forklift at the transfer station.
Just a question on the forklift. Is that our forklift? But
That is our forklift.
but Bill got it fixed and paid it, and now we're paying Bill. Is that how it?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any more questions? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. 17.2 from the General Capital Fund, JIL Engineering for the Seal Cove Playground, $35,822.50. And Island Waste and Recycling for JR Electric, $12,024.75.
I'd make a motion that we pay these out of the general capital fund.
I'll second that.
You heard the motion from Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons, seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question?
Again, a question. This is just an update on each one of those units, please.
The JIL, that's the second half of the Seal Cove Playground that we put in down there, and the money was moved into the Capital Reserve Fund at the end of last year, so that when we got our final bill, we could move it back out to pay this invoice. And Island Waste, that's just the bill for JR Electric. It's a project that Trish is working on. Bill paid it and we're just paying him back, and that money will come out of our gas tax.
A question on the Island Waste and Recycling. Is that a progress payment? Because I talked to Bill a couple of weeks ago, and he said the electrical work was not complete.
Nope, it's not
So-
finished, but he's paid this much of it, so we're just
So this
paying
is a
him back.
progress payment. This isn't the full contract, or? do we know?
No,
Okay.
it's not
okay.
finished.
It's a progress payment then.
The project is not finished.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. 18.1, it's a motion to transfer $31,150 from the Capital Reserve Fund to the General Capital Fund.
Everybody's
Should we
anxious. aren't
Second
they?
it.
Okay, my internet cut out. Who was the motion and the seconder? Sorry.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second
I
it.
second it.
Now everybody wants to. Moved by Councillor Layton, seconded by Councillor Brown. Question.
Listen, just give a brief description of that, please.
This is just bringing the money out of the capital reserve fund to pay the JIL bill. The funds are different amounts because we bring out the amount before tax. Because we can reclaim the tax.
Okay, yeah.
Yep.
So that's JIL. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. 18.2, motion to transfer $10,936.37 from the gas tax fund to the general capital fund.
I motion to transfer.
I'll second.
Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question?
Same update, please, Alyssa.
This is just moving money to pay the bill, to pay the invoice to bill for the JR Electric, and it is the amount before tax.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. And the last one, 18.3, which is a motion to transfer $28,657.10 from the general operating reserve fund to the general operating fund.
I'd make that a motion.
I'll second it.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons, seconded by Councillor Brown. Question?
Alyssa, can you tell us what that's for?
Yeah, I would love to, Roger and Greg. This is just a transfer because we went over on our rock work at the Castalia Ball Diamond. We budgeted $20,000. We spent $58,657.10. So we're bringing out the amount before tax to replace it in our general operating fund.
Any further questions?
How do we go that far over?
We knew we were going to. Alan put in a bid for 40. We had only budgeted 20, and then he went over more than that, and that was all plus tax. It was all approved by the other council. We're just making this transfer before the end of the year so that we're not in the hole on December 31st.
Right.
And I believe we extended the rock work further than what we
We
had
did.
originally been
Yep.
quoted for, just because we needed,
Yep. And those amounts were approved by council and it's all been paid and we're just transferring it back.
any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. 18 is closed session, which we had that meeting prior to our regular meetings, so we don't need to stop for that. So 18.1 is personnel, CAO.
Make sure I'm unmuted. I'm unmuted. Good stuff. Yes. The motion regarding the CAO is, I move that Chris Rayner continue in the acting CAO role until November 8th of 21. At that time, Rob McPherson return as CAO with the conditions as directed by the Council of the Village of Grand Manan.
You heard the motion from Councillor Green. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Toll. Question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. I think on behalf of council, I would like to thank Chris for stepping up into the CAO position for us for the last 4 months. I know it's been a lot and I've certainly appreciated working with him. So a huge thanks from us. 18.2 personnel clerk.
Yes. The clerk has completed her 6-month probationary period this month. And after reviewing her performance and all that with the personnel committee, I would move that since Esme Swigger has successfully completed her probationary period, she be appointed as a full-time clerk, assistant treasurer for the village of Grand Manan with a 5% salary increase.
Heard the motion from Councillor Green. Do we have a seconder?
Second that.
Seconded by Councillor Boyd. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. 18.3 was financial, the snow removal tenders. I believe we had one tender that met the conditions of the tender calls, so we would need a motion about.
I
the
would
snow
move
removal.
Someone else move? No, I would move that we accept the qualified tender offers from Dutchman Contracting for the snow removal for this season.
Heard the motion from Councillor Green. Do we have a seconder?
Second that.
Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for getting through our questionable internet meeting tonight. Our next regular council meeting will be December 6th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. and we will make a call whether we're Zoom or back in person before then. So thanks to everybody and good night.
Night.
No.
Needing a motion to adjourn.
I would like one of those. Yes, thank you.
I so move.
Seconder?
Second it.
We all left. No one left.
Oh, God.